Good morning, folks. I apologize for being a couple minutes late. One of those things. Got caught up in something and about missed my own window here. So, let's just get rid of that little earbud because those things drive me nuts. And, all right. So, another 9:05 stream. And, okay, make sure everything is up and running. I do have an appointment right after this today, so I have to keep on a tight schedule. So we may not get the sculpt finished today that I want to do, but we're certainly going to give it a shot. So without further ado, we're going to get into doing a Chimera. And since I've been doing this stuff for so long, I have a lot of meshes that I can pull from as a starting point for things. So let's jump into this. Okay, we'll go over to Zbrush, and since Chimera is basically a big cat, let's see here now. Boy, there we go. Basically, we're talking about a big cat with an additional head of a goat, and then that of a snake, some sort coming off the back. Sometimes you see these with wings. I've pulled up an old tiger that I have that we're going to be working from. And I'm going to go ahead and unify this so that we're actually at a decent scale for the brushes. And then, since these are intended for minis, I'm going to get rid of these whiskers. Just jump in here and get rid of those right off the bat. Do not need those if you're working for something for minis. Okay. So I know it might be a bit of a cheat, but like I said, I'm trying to get these done in tight time frames, and that tight time frame business is like, that's kind of a thing. If I can be more efficient by pulling in, bucks from things, starter meshes to use, then that's just going to help me out. So I'm going to turn on my symmetry here and brush over all of this real quick with a smooth brush and Sculptress so that we smooth it out and create some extra resolution. There are some details that are in there that I could choose to keep, but I'm going to keep those. I'm going to knock those out, because they'll end up getting sculpted back in and exaggerated quite a bit. So then right here, I'm going to go ahead and do some shaping on these ears. I want to make them a little more pointed, and I want to stylize this a little bit, actually quite a bit, because it's a Chimera. It's a fantasy creature. So let's go ahead and just dynamesh this thing. See what we get. That's not enough. I think I'm going to scale that guy up a little bit. Dynamesh that. That might be a bit much. That might cause it to hang. Or did it? No, it didn't. Oh, kill. Go to about here. Maybe. I want to go in here and inflate all these teeth before I do this. That way, I actually want that stuff to fuse and become thicker, because that will make it pop out much better as a mini. And then I'm going to go ahead and go in here and use Sculptress to collapse a lot of that throat together. And try to fill a lot of that in so that it there we go. Let's get and get on that. Really want to fill that stuff in so that it will close up when it dynameshes and we won't have too much of a depth in there. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and exaggerate some of these teeth because this is a big old monster. I'm going to go ahead and pull some of these down like this. And then we'll brush over them with Sculptress. And I'm going to go ahead and dial back. I'm going to do a little bit of sculpting right here into the mouth. Kind of push this stuff back so that I create a lip that's going to hold when I dynamesh this. Here, I'm just going to inflate a bunch of this stuff inside here. Most of that stuff, as a mini, you got to think, you zoom out from that, that stuff's not going to be seen, like, at all. So, I can come in and close up a lot of that with an inflate brush. And then whenever it's a miniature, it'll get painted black inside there. Okay. So yeah, right there is where we want to go with that, I think. Then I'm going to come in and start shaping some of this stuff around now so that it becomes a little more interesting. This is, it's a fantasy creature, so let's kind of go crazy with some stuff and really, make it unique. After all, it's a Chimera. It's supposed to be kind of scary. So let's give it quite a bit of a natural snarl going on. I have to be careful about adding too much of a brow onto an animal like this, because then it humanizes it a bit too much. But I do want some furrows in there. And right now these are going to be symmetrical, but I'll go through and add some chaos and asymmetry to them later. And on a Chimera, the cat portion is usually described as being like a lion, so I'm going to add quite a bit of volume around this and make it a male with a nice big mane coming off of it. First off, I just want to build up the volume for that. Really is a lot like just slapping on chunks of clay, you know. And from there, I'm going to work on my anatomy a little bit, and I want to exaggerate some things. So, and you can't see it on screen, but I am keeping some references off to the side for just this sort of thing. Even though, honestly, I can kind of draw a lot of different animal anatomies in my sleep at this point, after doing this stuff for so many years. I still like to keep references around just to be sure that I'm getting it, you know, generally in the ballpark of what it should be. Yeah, I don't care who you are as an artist, you're never too good to use references. Make him a little lean in the middle, and, you know, makes him feel a little hungrier. Shoulder's a bit too large right there. I'm gonna change a little bit of his gait here too, from my original tiger donor. Make him just a little bit wider. I think it'll help sell this idea of this big, powerful creature. I definitely want to dial back some of this. I want to add some volume. Actually, remove some volume from in here, but give that chest a little bit more space. There we go. Start to build some of that stuff in. And then I'm going to come back here and scoop out some of this area for these triceps. There is a lot of comparative anatomy you can find between most mammals. Stuff that if you study human anatomy, you'll start to see the similarities. And that makes it easier to remember a lot of stuff, that's for sure. So I want to exaggerate these paws. Let's just rotate them a little bit and get them into more of a planted position here. And I'll use the line across the bottom of Zbrush's viewport there a lot of times to as a guide to help get stuff like that in place. Okay, and I want to come in and start exaggerating this mouth a bit. Let's really give it a nice big snarl. Okay. And I want to make these the big kind of bulbous areas of a cat muzzle a little more prominent. And give a little delineation here to its nose. Okay, now I can start to add some nice big strokes in here for starting to define a lot of this mane. So I find it's best, I personally prefer to work from kind of the outermost part of hair, like get the whole shape kind of blocked in and then work from the outermost parts in, because then I can define the volumes pretty well of all those locks of hair, and it's very helpful, I'm finding, in sculpting for minis and things to go to print. Very helpful. Actually, it's helpful regardless to approach hair and think of it in terms of its individual. Don't think of it in terms of strands. Think of it in terms of bundles. And then you get the shape of the bundles, and everything else. It's like you're someone seeing it. They know that hair is in strands. You don't need to show them all the strands. What you need to do is show them the shapes of the bundles that the strands are in, and then their brain will fill in the rest. course, that all, again, is going to need to have some serious asymmetry added to it. For a quickly sculpted lion head to go on a mini, I feel like that's pretty good, you know, for a Chimera. I'm going to alter that jaw just a little bit. Like that. And then I'm going to come in and add some, little bit of something to these teeth inside here. Maybe, yeah, pull them down like that. Just that way, as a mini, it's got something of interest on the sides there, you know. All right, I am digging that. I am digging that. So now let's come through, get some more of this other shape here worked in. More shaping around the shoulders. You know, if you take note of it, my particular method of sculpting tends to be like building up volumes that are a little bit more than I need. You know, I'll get a general volume put into something, and then I'll go carving into it to get landmarks. And then I'll go back and forth between adding and subtracting from that until I get generally, you know, what I'm after. I'm going to turn this off for a little bit because Sculptress is great, but it does add mesh or subtract mesh. And sometimes I just want to block some shapes in from the actual just stuff that's there more quickly. So I'll turn that back off. That bicep piece is kind of riding a little too much to the front. Smooth some of that back. And see if we can't pull that a little bit. And then I want to exaggerate his forearms a little bit. It's a nice sturdy look on there. Oh. Just thinking some things through right now. Kind of looking at some references. Giving my brain a little bit of a break. And let's see here now. I was just having a great conversation yesterday with Gary from 3D Printing Pro. Excellent, excellent YouTube channel where I have learned a lot from him about printing and setups, and so we're talking about doing some work together on a future Kickstarter he has coming together, and we'll see how all that shapes up. I'm excited. He's a super cool guy, and one of the things that we were doing in our conversation was, we were talking about different things an artist needs to consider in their sculpts going to print. And so we pulled up a sculpt of mine, and there was a consideration that I hadn't really thought about in claws on creatures. And I'm going to address that here, since that was something that he and I were talking about, and I think it's a really great thing to touch on. Excuse me. So, even though resin printing can produce things with undercuts way better than lots of other forms of production, still those can be problematic. So if you can avoid them, you should. And on something like claws, that's a point where we're definitely going to end up having a need for something like an undercut. But we were talking about ways to get the appearance of an undercut while still having something that's way easier to do the setups on. And it was very enlightening for me. And I'm going to touch on one way to do that. I've thought of a bunch of different ways to do that after a conversation. But one good way to do that I'm going to touch on right now is going to be just making these groups like this. And then I'm just going to extrude those out from here a little tiny bit, then smooth them back so that there really are just these little kind of cylinders or lumps on the front of the mesh. And then I'm going to come back through here, smooth out more of the top of them so it would blend them back in, so they kind of have this graduated appearance coming out. But you see there's not a huge undercut. Then I can come back and sculpt some detail around the top that helps carry the illusion of where they appear. That one right there might be a little problematic. Move that one back in a little bit. So those are going to read really, really well as a mini. So I might want to inflate all of that just a little bit, just to bring it out even more. There we go. But yeah, as a miniature, that stuff is going to read really well. It's going to print really well, and it's not going to be, you know, a royal pain to do a setup on. Well, let's deal with these biceps a little bit more now. I'm not real happy with those. Here we go. That's much more the feeling that I want to get out of that. Okay. I can get a little crazier with some of these details through here. I like the pinch point at the underside of a deltoid. That's just a cool looking spot that I think if you get that right, you get this sense of power that's just really cool. Let's add a few more striations. Okay. There we go. That's much more what I'm looking for. Alright, I'm going to go through and correct my anatomy a little bit on this. Just getting it a little bit better here. Ah, boys. Boys, boys, boys. Let's drop some landmarks for this stuff. I'm going to pause for just a second to see what my dogs are going nuts about. Alright. Pretty cool. I'm back. I'm back. So, Amazon guy was here. Batteries for the UV torch. And my flags that came too late for the holiday. That's okay. It happens. Alrighty. Let's pop over in the chat real quick, see if anybody has anything to say. Oh Lord, it's popping off in here. We have Gina, Sean, Reggie, Overboard's here. Hey guys. Good morning, everybody. Overboard says he's looking at a Saturn 4K mono. I haven't used one, but Gary from 3D Print Pro swears by him apparently. I know it's very similar to my Frozen Mighty 4K, and the Saturn 4K mono is probably going to be my next printer that I order. I want to be able to compare that to my Mighty 4K. The one big thing that's making me think about switching to Elegoo Saturn is that it's my understanding that parts and replacements and FEPs and things like that for them are much easier to get. I think their stuff ships out of North Carolina, whereas I'm pretty sure the stuff from Frozen is out of Taiwan, which is becoming problematic in this day and age. Because, you know, there's some people out there who don't like Taiwan. Alright. So where are we at now? Back this back down a little bit more. Alright. I'm thinking this guy, I mean, I kind of knew. This is an involved creature, so it's probably going to be a two-parter. And that's okay. If I had thought about it, I would have made sure not to have scheduled this guy, you know, right on a day when I'm going to have to take off for an appointment that I cannot miss. So, what can you do? Let's just block in these major forms. Get those landmarks down. then from there, I should be able to smooth over that. Get a pretty nice result. Just using those big landmark cuts in there to lay some shape in, and then we're just going to polish it back out. Should make it much more subtle. Not too subtle, because it's going to go to a mini. So. Let's get some motion in there to help sell that look. Okay. Feeling pretty good about that. There we go. That's what I knew it needed. It needed those shoulders popped up a bit. Alright, so that right there feels really powerful. Now, we're going to need, let's see, I'm going to, first off, Dynamesh this. And that loses quite a bit of detail. So I'm going to take my blur on that down to 1, reproject it, Dynamesh this at about between 300 and 400. Give that just a minute. Check our time. I'm not doing too bad. Did we just crash? Oh, of course we did. Thanks, Zbrush. Thanks. First crash of the day. What did we say about Zed? Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead. Oh, how much did we lose? How much did we lose? Yep, we lost all that work on the behind parts. Thanks, Zbrush. Thanks so much. Well, anything worth doing once is worth doing a dozen times. That's the mantra of the 3D professional. That's okay. First time was just practice, right? We'll just keep popping back and forth with our references. Right. Should be something kind of like that. Let's come in here and kind of add some definition in some of this. Starting to get a little muddled there. Fix that. Alright, let's smooth a bunch of that out. So it's not so egregious. Alright. And let's save this before I go any further, just because. So I'll probably end up going through and doing more work with the hair in here. Just giving it more delineated shapes. Like carving into it some bulk stuff like that, so you even, you know, have some bigger peaks and valleys along with all that small stuff. And then I'll probably end up adding some curls and little bundles and things to it after the fact. It'll just sit on top of that. Now, come in here to our Dynameshing. Said I wanted that set to a 1. Go right about there and see what we get. Does that hold up my details? It's close. For that projection, turning on project on your Dynamesh is can be rough. Let's hope that works out. Looks like it's trying to. Yep. Cool, finally. Got what I wanted out of that. Since it's Dynamesh now, I can brush over it and that'll get rid of a lot of that surface noise that I do not want. That's going to be nice. Brush over with a smooth brush. And since it's Dynameshed, I'm going to pull a fast one here with these feet. So I'm going to grab this foot and make an insert mesh out of it. I'm going to go back to the back feet here. And I'm going to hide, delete hidden. I'm going to close the holes on that. Draw these new ones in. Check and make sure they're similar in size. Just a little bit bigger. I want the back feet to be a little bit bigger there. Okay. Now I want to pull that stuff around with my move brush so it's roughly in place. Go ahead and hit close holes. Then I'm going to re-Dynamesh that. Alright. Now, let's go back to Sculptress mode and use that to do some blending. Just smoothing out where those connected. Okay. And then we're going to take my damn standard and just work those details back into that area. Really like that. Alright, let's Dynamesh that again. And then I'm going to come back in with sculptures turned off. I said I'm going to come back in with sculptures turned. Ooh, why is it doing that? There we go. Boy, that was wild. Okay, come back in with sculptures turned off. And I'm just going to brush over that stuff. Smooth that out a little bit. So there we have the lion base for our Chimera. Just go through here and redefine some stuff a little bit. You're going to want to punch up some of the facial forms. That'll read really well as a mini. See some areas right there that need to be filled in. I'll just inflate that stuff so that the next time it dynameshes, that stuff will get filled in. I'm going to thicken up behind these teeth a little bit. That'll make that stuff way, way, way more successful to print. So now when I dynamesh that, that should all fill in pretty nicely there. It's going to make those teeth much stronger, have a stronger structure so that when it prints, they're less likely to break off. So these right here, I really don't want to change in that same way. I could, there's a few things I could do with those to make them maybe stronger and make them print a little better. I think I will thicken them up a bit. But I don't want to overdo it and lose, just lose what I want out of that as a shape and as an attitude. Alright, so I feel pretty good about that. Let me check the time. Okay, it is 10:10. So I am 5 minutes over. So this is going to have to go down as a part 1 of 2. Okay, so let's switch that off there. And I'm going to save my ZTL. Do our morning turntable. Wherever that went. There we go. All right. I'll pop back over to the chat real quick. See who we have on. Sean says, I'm guessing tomorrow will be part 2, Chimera. You are correct. Are correct. Overboard says, I've heard that the Saturn is hard to get parts for. You know, I honestly don't know firsthand. I could tell you that when I was looking around for some parts for some of my own stuff, you know, it seemed to me like everywhere I looked, I could find parts for a Saturn, but I couldn't find parts for the mighty 4Ks that I'm using. So who knows? We'll see. If you get one, let me know. If I get one before you, I'll let you know. All right. So that's going to close us up for the morning. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Come back tomorrow for part 2 of the Chimera sculpt. So hopefully tomorrow we'll get into maybe a snake head and a goat head. Maybe we throw some wings on it. Maybe we don't. I'm on the fence about whether I like that or not. I'm actually tempted to break it into 2 different chimeras, like a greater, call it the lesser chimera and the greater chimera. So one has wings and one doesn't. So anyway, that is going to close it up. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell.